Yeah, I bet.
That's about all I got. I don't know.
Sean's not here. Head of the department.
Thank you. I love that screen. Last hand.
Why don't you talk and see if we can hear you?
Sure, Dan, can you hear us? Sorry, Dan, was that a yes? Awesome, thumbs up.
Okay. Because everyone got so quiet in this room.
I don't know if we can hear him. Why don't you talk again? I have audio in the room.
What's that?
Why don't you talk to the mic?
Okay, sure. I got nothing to say. Right on the money there.
Can you try saying something, Dan, to see if we can hear you?
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Look at that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate everybody's patience with the technology. Thanks, Brian, for the work. Sure, whatever you want me to say, that's great. Awesome. All right, let's start with Pledge of Allegiance this evening. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And let's start with tonight's approval of the agenda.
Move the board approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Denise, when you are ready.
AJ,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Kim Marie,
Yes.
Drew,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Angie,
Yes.
Nick.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Into 2.03, honoring excellence this evening. Dallas.
Good evening, everybody. 'Tis the season for celebrations, right? And we've had a lot of them if you've been following our social media platforms, website, and all that good stuff. And we have a room full of celebrations, I think, tonight. It's pretty refreshing to see a room full of good. And tonight I actually have a few guests that are going to make the presentations, and we're going to lead off with our Grow Your Own Teachers program. And I think we have a record number of recipients that we're going to introduce tonight. And to introduce the program and make those presentations, we'll start with Mr. D. Rosecrans.
Thank you, Dallas. Grow Your Own Teachers, GYOT, if you'll allow me to use that abbreviation for the rest of this, is only part of the Liberty Public Schools effort to address the national shortage of high-quality teacher candidates. Grow Your Own, the larger umbrella now, GYO, includes identifying, for example, paraprofessionals who are halfway through their pursuit of a college degree, and we are encouraging and supporting them to become teachers. We have applied and won a couple of DESE grants. One will enable the district to fund a hard-to-fill teaching slot as defined by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, which includes special education, math, and science. And the other DESE grant will allow the district to form what we're calling teacher ambassadors. Those are our current teachers, and they'll do a variety of things to help retain our existing teaching staff. However, tonight, our spotlight is on one aspect of GYO, and that's the Grow Your Own Teacher program. The recipients that we will introduce to you here in a moment are a result of the vision that began about 6 years ago when Dr. Vogelaar attended a Kansas City Regional Equity Conference held at the MCC, one of the Metropolitan Community Colleges, where he learned firsthand about the state's equity initiative. From there, Dr. Vogelaar served as a representative for the Liberty Public Schools at the state level as a member of the Missouri Equity Plan, and specifically the Equity Committee. And I believe that's where Dr. Vogelaar crossed paths with our own ADS, Andrea Dixon Seahorn. By the way, Liberty Public Schools back in 1916, I remember that. Oh, that was a slip. 2016 was the only suburban school district represented on that committee. So we are in the vanguard of a lot of things, and this is one of those great ones. The committee's work resulted in a seminal publication titled A Resource Guide to Creating Your Own Teacher Pipeline, which DESE has used now statewide for the last number of years. Our GYOT program's focus is to identify and cultivate future teacher leaders from among our own student body, particularly students of color. The vision for this Grow Your Own Teachers endeavor also led to special recognition from the Garrison School Cultural Center back in 2017, which presented Liberty Public Schools with the Response to Call Award. Because we listened to our community, We examined our own selves as far as an organization, particularly looking at the diversity of our teaching staff, and maybe most importantly for developing action plans and strategies to increase the diversity of its staff. Our Grow Your Own Steering Committee has been the same members since its inception. They include Dr. Precious Kurth and Dr. Rosemary Camp from Liberty North, Ms. Bridget Herman and Mr. Mike Sharp from Liberty High School, Ms. Colleen Jones, Ms. Melissa Taylor, who serves as our coordinator for the Education Intern Program, EIP, Dr. Dwayne Smith, Dr. Andrea Dixon Seahorn, and myself. The process in a nutshell, that first year we were discovering and learning for ourselves. The last number of years it's been more of a fine-tuning of this very intricate process, and it's very in-depth, including a marketing plan, finalizing an application, and the selection process, identifying prospective students from among our current senior class, communicating with and to parents and eligible students, based in great part on a Kauffman Foundation-sponsored survey that was originally known as Teach KC, which has since been expanded to Teach Missouri. And then the interview process itself, from forming a panel, forming questions, and actually interviewing students. That leads us to tonight, and that's the announcement, and ADS will take that over in just one last moment. We thank, again, not only the philosophical and support by the board for this program, but also its financial support to the tune of $40,000 a year. The foundation has also generously chipped in and provided monetary support totaling $4,000 over the last couple of years. This boils down to a support of $2,500 per academic year per student selected for GYOT that is applied to college tuition. These funds are renewable for up to 4 years, the 4 academic years that those students are in college. And upon completing and satisfying all of the requirements as outlined in a rather complicated and detailed Grow Your Own Teachers agreement, which in fact is a contract that is annually reviewed by our district's legal counsel. Support is crucial in this whole process, and each recipient is matched with a teacher mentor, often someone they had K through 12, usually from this school district, to supply that support and that care. Summer employment, student teaching opportunities, and substitute teaching when students reach that certain magic number of 60 college hours are also available by Liberty Public Schools to these students. Any chance we get to give them real life in-class experience above and beyond what they're experiencing as they journey through their college lives. So for the first time, we will host this summer a reunion of sorts of all 16. This is the first time that all 16 slots have been filled, and that will provide another layer of support where students, some of the older students, the first cohort group, will kind of talk about what to do and what not to do in college, and some of the younger members, such as the folks tonight, will have an opportunity for questions and hopefully some good solid answers to give them advice. Last thing I'll say is there are not too many college freshmen who can state to their peers upon the first day of their college career, I have a job. Because the ultimate goal for us and for them is upon completion of all these hoops, I guess, in the process of becoming teachers, they're guaranteed full teaching positions with our school district at the conclusion of the awarding of their degrees and their certificates. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over, finally, to Dr. Andrea Dixon Seahorn, who will make the presentations.
All right, very briefly, at this time, we want to call the names of our LPS Grow Your Own teachers, aspiring teachers for the spring 2022 cohort. When I call your name, please come forward. We have a certificate for you so everyone can see your beautiful face. So our first recipient is Lucy Chu. Lucy is here with her parents, Christy Rudder Chu and Stephen Chu. Lucy graduated from LNHS and has plans to attend Northwest Missouri State University. Thank you so much. All right, our next recipient is Maurice Cullum Jr. Maurice's parents are Philonda Hughes and Maurice Cullum Sr. Maurice also graduated from LNHS and has plans to attend Drury University. Thank you so much and congratulations. Jessica Giles. Jessica's parents are Camille and Franklin Giles. Jessica graduated from LHS and has plans to attend Northwest Missouri State University. Go Bearcats. Our next recipient is Esmeralda Gonzalez Gomez. Esmeralda's parents are Maria and Jose Gomez. Esmeralda graduated from LNHS and has plans to attend University of Central Missouri. Our next recipient is Sophia McCroskey. Sophia's parents are Yamir and James McCroskey. Sophia graduated from LNHS and has plans to attend Drury University. Almost there. Our next recipient is Maricela Meza. Maricela's parents are Guadalupe and Salvador Meza. She graduated from LNHS and has plans to attend Maple Woods Community College. Congratulations. And last but not least, Teray Watkins. Teray's parents, Bo Shelby Watkins. She graduated from LHS and has plans to attend Maple Woods Community College. Congratulations. And those are our very own recipients. Let's give them another round of applause.
Awesome job. Congratulations to all you. And as soon as this recognition's over, I might meet you guys for a photo out in the hall if you'd be so kind. So great way to start the evening. Dr. Schmitz, would you like to come up with your team from EPIC? Many of you may have seen this exciting news. There's the group in the entryway at EPIC Elementary as this recognition came down just a few weeks ago. I'll read a bit of the press release here. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, DESE, has announced 8 Missouri Gold Star schools for 2022. The program, which aligns with the National Blue Ribbon Schools program sponsored by the U.S. Department of Education, recognizes schools for outstanding academic achievement or for performing at high levels while serving a significant proportion of disadvantaged students. One of those 8 is this group right here and their students from EPIC Elementary. The Missouri Gold Star Schools program was established in 1991 and uses the same criteria for nomination as the National Blue Ribbon Schools program. The U.S. Education's Blue Ribbon Schools will be announced this fall, and as it was just minutes after the presentation, I got the sense Dr. Schmitz is this team's gonna go for the Nationals. Right? I just get that sense. He's a little competitive, knowing her over the years. So we congratulate this amazing team from EPIC Elementary on receiving this splendid. I promised her she didn't have to speak, and I'm going to present you with this award. I have some scissors in my office if you want to divide this up. Congratulations. Thanks for being here. Another round of applause. Next, you will see an image. Yes, that was big news as well. Just in late March, we wanted to get this crew in, and we have a special guest that's traveled a few miles to be with us tonight. Lisa, are you here? Lisa's right behind me here. Lisa with the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. She's going to make the presentations this evening for these exemplary library programs, 2 of them here from Liberty Public Schools. Lisa?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Lisa Scroggs. I'm the English Language Arts Director at the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and I'm excited to be here this evening to present these awards to 2 very deserving libraries. These 2 Liberty schools were among only 8 from across the state to earn Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's Exemplary School Library Program distinction this year. Applicants were scored by a team of school librarians from across Missouri on 21 indicators that measure aspects such as instruction, leadership, library environment, library management, and staffing. To achieve the recognition, applicants had to receive a minimum score of 38 out of 42 without receiving a score of 0 on any of the 21 indicators. At this time, I would like to acknowledge Heritage Middle School under the direction of librarian Beth Marley. Beth, can you come forward, please? And South Valley Middle School under the direction of librarian Robin Lewis. To recognize this achievement, the department is pleased to present each library with resolutions from the Missouri State Board of Education, the Missouri House of Representatives, and the Missouri Senate. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And quickly, from the podium, just wanted to make a quick acknowledgement. We received our official certificate of accreditation from Cognia, as if you've been following that over the last several months, and we appreciate Dr. Westfall and our building leaders and department leaders for all the work that went into that. I just wanted to read this. This is to certify that Liberty Public Schools has met the criteria for educational quality established by the Cognia Global Commission and is hereby presented this certificate of accreditation by the North Central Association Commission on Accreditation and School Improvement, the Northwest Accreditation Commission, and the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Council on Accreditation and School Improvement. And again, we have that posted on our website if you'd be interested in reading about that. And again, I know our team worked extremely hard on that process. So with that, and we'll be sure to display this proudly here at the DAC. And I'll meet some of you students outside, and want to wish everyone a great rest of the school year, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next year.
Thank you, Dallas. Hey, it's been a long time since we've been able to do this as we transition into public comment. We used to go out and shake hands and say congratulations prior to the pandemic. So let's just do that. Let's take, I don't know, 5-6 minutes, mingle a little bit, and congratulate all these people.
I need a clarification.
New business.
That was fun. Yeah, it was good.
That was nice.
Right? It was. You've never done it?
Yeah, no, that's all right. I don't have to do it. Okay.
That's what we usually do.
Thank goodness.
But I don't have an apple, so I don't have.
Little Christmas present. Or maybe not.
Yeah, yeah. I changed. Maybe that was it. That's about all I know. I don't know why I can't get in there.
All right, I'm gonna corral everybody. I understand. I got you.
It's time, my friends.
You have to make a restroom break. Yeah.
Okay.
What's this?
You don't have a gavel?
No.
What happened to it?
I don't know. Dallas, thanks for indulging us on that. That was fun to do again.
We haven't done that in 2 years.
All right, 2.04, any public comment? Denise, any blue cards this evening? Okay, we will move forward. Into consent agenda, just a reminder for those joining us for the first time or forgetting. Our adopted rules of parliamentary procedure, Robert's Rules, provide for a consent agenda listing several items for approval of the board by a single motion. Documentation concerning these items has been provided to all board members and the public in advance to assure an extensive and thorough review. Items may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member. Do I have a motion?
I move the board approve consent agenda items 3.01 to 3.07.
Second.
Denise, when you're ready.
AJ,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Kim Marie,
Yes.
Drew,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Angie,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
motion carries.
Into section 4, reports from the administration, starting with innovation and learning.
Thank you. 4.01, we will welcome Dr. Moore to the podium to provide the Innovation and Learning Report.
Good evening. We want to start by thanking everyone for spending their Sunday with us and celebrating just at 1,000 students who graduated from Liberty Public Schools. And we are excited to see what their future holds. And hard to believe, but we are already planning for our graduation ceremony for 2023. Goes fast. So we're already working on that one. Also excited to announce our first annual Innovation Summit this summer. On June 2nd, we are inviting secondary teachers, administrators, coaches to come together and talk about innovation. We will spend a day together learning from each other about what has been successful, what have been some of our trials and tribulations, and how can we move forward as a district. So we are excited. As of right now, we have around 40 teachers. We were hoping for about 50, and we're still taking enrollment every day. So we're excited to start that new tradition. Also exciting is, mentioned at our board study session, we have issued over 900 badges now to seniors who've just graduated for market value assets that they have earned. And we're very, very pleased with that number. Our goal for next year is to have 80% of our seniors earn a market value asset, with our goal being 100% by the class of 2025. So we are getting there. Also, kindergarten enrollment numbers, we are currently at 633, which is just 5 higher than we were this time last year. So we feel like we're on track with those numbers and wanted to share that. Our competency-based learning work continues. Dr. Westphal had a parent group and a teacher group who met last week. They looked at data, collected feedback, and have started to make plans for next year and what that will look like. And then finally, we are working on our plans for New Teacher Institute and pre-service already. So the pre-service schedule went out to buildings so they could start planning for that, and the coaches are working on New Teacher Institute, which starts on August 11th. So with that, I will take any questions.
All right, so badges for market value asset. First off, just remind us what a market value asset is.
So a market value asset is the opportunity for a student to demonstrate skills and competencies within an area, really tied to the skills and dispositions within our graduate profile.
Yep.
So as an example, since Melissa Taylor is here, students who participated in the EIP program, they earn a market value asset, which then they can take when they leave us. They can take and show potential employers, school district, or universities, whatever it is that they do next, that they have met the skills and dispositions within that program. And it gives them something, really a leg up to talk about with, again, universities, whatever it is that they want to do.
Good, good. And you said badge. Is it a physical badge or is it a?
It is an electronic.
Electronic, there we go.
It is an electronic badge. So we currently are really the only school district in the area that I know of that has piloted this and has sent out this many. So Kauffman Foundation is working on a more formalized badge that would go out so that when employers see a badge that says Kauffman, they can ask what the student did to earn that badge, and then they can talk about their internship, their Find Connected project. We decided for this pilot to create our own badges. So we took the EIP logo, we took the Network 53, we made one for students who earn the dual credit or college credit, and created those ourselves and sent them out to students, which it was great. Some students were not really sure. There were a few that weren't really sure what it was. So they went to different people and said, is this legit? Because it came from the Kauffman Foundation. And so they were asking if this was actual and what that meant. So part of our next steps are making sure that all students understand what the market value asset means, and how a badge can help them moving forward.
Very cool. Good.
Think of LinkedIn as you can kind of check off credentialing that you receive and create that digital badge or that digital credential.
Yep.
This then can accompany in terms of your LinkedIn profile, a resume, college, employment application. So as Dr. Moore mentioned, we're the first regionally to try this or to work through this, with the goal being that you develop these regionally recognized credentials with a common badge so that an employer sees that and knows automatically, okay, this is a real world learning experience. So we'll get there.
When the 8th graders, current 8th graders are coming and touring the high schools in the coming weeks, are they going to hear about that, or is that something that you'll wait to introduce to them later in their careers?
They will. I'm not sure if they'll hear about it at that point, but we have actually gotten together to talk about about flex time and how that will look next year, particularly for freshmen at the high school level. So how we can pull freshmen in and utilize that flex period to talk about market value assets, how to help them through their ICAP, to see these are the things that you want to do when you're in high school, so that they'll know by the beginning of their freshman year that these are some of the things I need to accomplish. They also pick, they should pick in 8th grade, and if they haven't done it, they'll pick at the beginning of 9th grade, which we have the 3 different diploma options that have started with this 9th grade class. So making sure they pick that, and they know then that there's a market value asset tied to it. We're also working on some marketing publications to send out to parents and to students so they understand it.
Okay.
So.
And ICAP, sorry, ICAP.
That's kind of, the simplest term is like a 4-year plan, so that they come together and they decide like which pathway they want to take.
Okay.
And these are the classes that they want to take over the 4 years if they want to do an internship. So if they know that they want to do the EIP program their senior year, maybe these are the things I need to do before then to accomplish that goal. So it really kind of gives them a pathway to what it is that they want to do post high school. Thank you. Sorry.
Another piece that we're doing this summer, along the lines of your question, is a summer series for kids participating in summer school in partnership with Northland Career Center. And it's like a 44-minute seminar that kids can choose from that covers all of the pathways and careers and coursework that's offered through Northland Career Center. So we're starting that this summer.
Yes.
It's accessible to both Liberty High School and Liberty North High School students. So another opportunity to connect the classroom to career opportunities.
And that's for kids participating in summer school?
Initially.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
So just one more quick question. And I know it's new and this is just initial. So this year it was just given to seniors, is that right?
Yes, so we
Okay.
started with seniors, starting in August. It will go to all students.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. It seems
Absolutely,
like
because
something that would be good for.
We're working to put it in Power School and then with the next year. So we wanted to pilot it because since nobody else had done it, we thought, let's just see how it goes and try it with the seniors. So starting in August, it will, as soon as a student earns an MBA, whether freshman, sophomore, or junior, they will receive one.
Okay.
Idea being, too, that you can accumulate multiple badges.
Right.
So you might be
Yeah.
an EIP, then you may also, be
College
an entrepreneur and have your own business. You may have
Mhm.
attained college credit.
Right.
So it's feasible that a student could accumulate 3 or 4 different badges along the way.
So it becomes part of a portfolio, whether that's
Absolutely.
for the
That's
workplace
coming
or
next.
for college
That's coming
So
applications.
it leads to conversations around an extended transcript
Mhm.
that sits beyond just your academic transcript, and then the portfolio piece. And then nationally, if you're kind of paying attention and reading up on some of this, it's the idea that you have a learner record, similar to your wallet on your phone that everybody has, that you can put your boarding pass on or whatnot, to where you could click on an app per se and be able to pull up your learner record and share your transcript, share your extended transcript or your portfolio or your credentials. So that's kind of what we're conceptualizing and really kind of building as we go. So.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Dr. Moore. Next up, 4.02, our equity report from Dr. Dixon Seahorn. We'll welcome her back to the podium.
Good evening. I just have 2 short progress updates, if you will. So the first is around our equity action plans and audits that our district leaders have been working on this year. Our actual end-of-year reflection sessions started today, and they will just run through about mid-June. So my goal is that for the July board meeting, that I'll have some type of summary report for you, so you can just kind of have an idea of what that work looked like for the year, and a high-level view of the reflections of our district leaders, particularly around how they really put equity into action, but then also how that work built their equity leadership capacity. And so the 2 conversations I had today were absolutely amazing, and sometimes it looks like it's not moving very fast, but after 2 years, just hearing the conversations around the reflections that they've had, we're doing the work. It's slow but sure. So you'll be pleased when we share those updates more in depth in July. Also, brief update on our belonging professional learning. Dr. Westfall and I have been working very closely on this with the Core Collaborative, and so we hope to have our finalized contract in the next week or so, and then you should see that in the consent agenda for next month. So we can potentially get that approved and work forward for next school year. So that is all I have for updates, and I'll take any questions if there are any.
Any questions of Dr. Dixon Seymour?
Not this month.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next then, our finance report 4.03, Ms. Cindy Sullivan. We're going to hear from her a little bit later on in depth as far as the preliminary budget, but anything to add in terms of your report?
Just briefly, good evening. We have one donation to recognize tonight. A donation of cardboard boxes valued at $4,064 donated by Vanguard Packaging. These are provided to teachers and other staffs that will be moving to different buildings or that need to clean out their room for remodeling or painting or carpet or whatnot for our summer deferred maintenance. So we would like to thank Vanguard for that very thoughtful donation. That's very helpful for those people that have to.
I've never thought of that.
Yeah.
That makes complete sense. It's great.
Yeah, it is. We appreciate that very much from them. So that's a great thing to share with the district. Business Services is beginning to prepare for the end of the year, which we start to prepare, and then that goes on for several months, as you know, as we wrap up one year, as we begin another year, just like we begin another year as we wrap up this year. So that's what they are busy being working on, all of that preparation. Audit and Finance Committee did meet in person last night. They reviewed the financial statements and the budget document. They had some really good questions over the budget document, just generic things that they wouldn't know necessarily, such as the budget process, what we were doing about inflation, and if we were taking into consideration how we're rolling out our capital plan with inflation and things like that. So they were really thoughtful questions, nothing of concern to pass along to you, but I felt that they did perform a good review of things, and we're well on top of what's going on with this whole process. On that note, we do have 3 members who have expiring terms from the Audit and Finance Committee. That application has been out on Quick News for several weeks now, and it will expire. The application expires on Friday, so we still have room for people to apply. We currently do have 3 applicants. So 3 applicants for 3 seats is, not bad. So we will bring them to you before the June meeting for interviews, and then you have the option to pick 1, 2, or 3, or none of them to fill seats on the Audit and Finance Committee, because that charter allows you to set that number that you wish to have on that committee. So we will get you their applications so you can see those before you meet with them, and have that process take place in June. And as Dr. Tucker said, then I will have preliminary budget presentation in a little while. Unless you have any other questions for me, that's all I have in this report tonight.
How many members are remaining on the Audit and Finance Committee?
So we have a total of 7. Okay. So we have 4 returning. And I know at this point, one of the members that is rolling off did apply again. So that could bring back a total of 5 continuing members.
And how often does the Audit and Finance Committee meet?
We meet a minimum of quarterly, but they review the statements every month. They are sent a link to them. This year, I believe we met 5 times in person.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell me that you're going to address this in the budget update after the final approvals for budgets at the state level, et cetera. Any benefit, happiness that you have to share potentially from?
I will share that, but transportation did indeed get fully funded this year, with the caveat that it is probably only 1 year. Yeah. We got a good Proposition C appropriation, which is sales tax. So that, I'm very pleased about that. Again, the foundation formula is what we know as called fully funded. So good things, yes. Okay. So, yep.
More good news to come.
Yes.
And still flushing out kind of the aftermath of the session in terms of all the bills and its fiscal impact and so forth on districts.
Right,
so.
right. And we'll receive a legislative update after they've kind of unpacked all of that will help us unpack it further too, to see what other ramifications may affect us financially.
Yeah.
Good.
Cindy, I know she said that in your report that expenditure percentages are higher this year. and as a result of COVID.
Mhm.
Are we receiving any COVID funding still at this point in time?
We have ESSER $3 that we have not received as of yet. And that one, as you will know, was contingent upon allocating 20% of the funding to learning loss. So we did get all of those plans approved. And when we submit an expenditure reimbursement request, we will receive them. They've all been spoken for. We just haven't received them from DESE yet. So we will not receive any new allocations of ESSER dollars. So those programs are over. We just don't have the money in our hands yet for some of the things that are being spent currently.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Ms. Sullivan?
Thank
you. 4.04 then is our operations report, and we will welcome Mr. Anderson to the podium.
Thank you. A few items to draw out of the report that's loaded. First of all, there was some news recently with respect to Narcan in schools and in response to the fentanyl crisis that we're experiencing across the country, but really the Northland. And so our team has been working closely on that, actually for a couple of years now. And I think just to share with you all, we have Narcan product in all of our schools. And some in the high schools, we have several doses on hand and ready to go. The nurses monitor that and administer that and are trained to do that. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that that program was in place, and we'll continue to explore ways to make sure that we fill any gaps that are in the system. We've talked a little bit about evening events and how best to manage that, so we're still working through some of that, but certainly want to let you know that we're on top of that. Also wanted to draw your attention to the fact that our meal pack program that we've been doing here for the past couple of years is coming to an end. As we've shared previously, the waiver system on meals is now getting ready to sunset as we head into summer school. And just some quick statistics. This is just those meal kits the families once a week come and pick up. We've been doing since March of 2020. We have handed out over 300,000 meals to families over that period of time, and primarily administered those out of Heritage and Liberty North High Schools. We had also initially some help at South Valley and Liberty High School as well. But really wanted to share, first of all, kind of proud that we've done that. We're I think the last district standing that managed to do that for the duration of the waiver. Our teams in those buildings, even with staffing challenges, they really embraced this program as something that they could do for the community and really kind of enjoyed it the past couple of years. So really wanted to kind of celebrate them tonight and thank them for all their hard work. Third item I wanted to bring up is the facility master plan and the bond planning process as we shared at the study session a couple weeks ago. We're going to target April of 23 for the election. We are in the process of developing a somewhat formal plan for how we kind of move into late summer and early fall and re-engage the community and how we can communicate that and really flesh out the plan in more detail that we would bring forward to you probably in that November, December timeframe. For consideration for an April 23 election. The last item I want to share is again to update you on some of the operations and classified staffing challenges that we continue to struggle with. I think those concerns are just heightened a little bit. We've had, I think, as you all probably seen, North Kansas City and Parkville school districts have kind of adopted a $15 minimum across the board. Right now, even with our recently here approved tonight increase, we're still just a shade under $12 an hour for some of our base staff. And so we have work to do, but I did want to share that we have a team together. We're working to develop a plan, hopefully to bring forward to you here in the coming weeks or month to see what we can do to help kind of shore that up a little bit. But it is a concern certainly to our department and the leaders therein. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Not questions. Thank you for pointing out nutrition services. It's tough to get your head wrapped around 300,000 family meals served, right? I mean, it's a number, but that's a lot that goes into that. And I don't remember who posted the video, but I remember seeing nutrition services working and putting together all these packs of food, whether it was for kids on a daily basis or it was for the families. I'm thoroughly impressed with what they've all done. I know you'll pass that along to them, but just thanks and kudos to everything that they go through throughout this pandemic and completely reframing how they operate and putting it together. It's been great.
Thank you for that.
As some of those provisions sunset from what we've experienced the last couple of years, I know working closely with nutrition services for those families that might qualify for free and reduced lunch status in an effort to ensure that they're provided for, their needs are met moving forward. There's a program in some districts as it relates to covering meals over the course of summer. That's Seamless Summer is the name of it. Other districts are able to offer that because they have a higher percentage of free and reduced lunch students. At Liberty Public Schools, we're not able to do that as we move into the summer. But something that we've talked about in thinking about the start of the 22-23 school year, the last 2 years in that everyone was receiving free meals. As we move forward without that in place, we're wanting to make sure that we are communicating, messaging to families that that application is there, and when in doubt, if you think you might qualify, fill it out, so that we can make sure that we're providing for the needs of our students. So we're going to have a concerted effort communicating that information out and ensuring that families are aware of that opportunity. So just wanted to include that. Other questions for Mr. Anderson?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. I really appreciated the note from Health Services about stocking a variety of skin tone colored bandages.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like a small thing, but in terms of belonging, it's huge.
Yep, agreed.
I like seeing that.
Great work. All right, thank you, Mr. Anderson. Next up, then 4.05 is our Human Resources Report from Dr. Vogelaar.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to celebrate the Grow Your Own initiative tonight, and I echo Dee's words of appreciation for your commitment, not just in philosophy or in ideology, but really in financial commitment and backing. So thank you for that. On our strategic work of the department, I do want to highlight just a few items and then open the floor to questions. On the employee wellness initiative front, our wellness coordinator, Rebecca Fisher, is launching a mental health first aid certification program that endeavors to certify all of our employees over the next several years in mental health first aid certification. We have an opportunity through Blue Cross to do this free of charge. And really it's a program that just equips people to recognize signs when others are struggling and then how to connect them with resources in sensitive ways. It's a good program, a good initiative, and the fact that we can do that financially neutral helps even more. So that's going to be rolling out in the coming months throughout the next year and possibly over the next few years to get everyone certified in that. I also want to draw your attention to the employee retirements and resignations. As Steve Anderson talked about on the classified front, filling positions is difficult, and then when you combine that with turnover as well, you do have a concern, and we have that on the classified side, and we're seeing that on the certificated side, although the applicants to backfill our open certificated positions are there. There's a grid on the report that was uploaded that is a little bit outdated because of the deadline for the report, but I do have updated numbers on that. So the line for exempt total departures that reads 96 is now 104 as of today. So it's a jump, and as you know, we will do addendums from time to time to add additional hires because that is a very rapidly moving target. On the non-exempt total departures, it was reading 348 in the report. It's now 374, so you see an uptick there. And if you look at the trend on both of those line items, the 104 for exempt and the 374 for non-exempt for the support positions, you see that those are up based on trend. They're up pretty sizably on the certificated side, but they're also up through the pandemic window there last couple of years on the classified side as well, and that's compounded by the labor market trends and also by compensation. Some of the positions that Steve talked about will require some action recommendations via plan to you, fairly soon, probably over the summer months, whereas we're rolling out a third-party compensation study over the course of the fall that will produce recommendations going forward. But there are just some areas where we can't wait for that to come to fruition, and so some independent study and action planning will be necessary. The other thing I wanted to draw out is the health risk assessments. We completed all of that. As you know, we offer a premium differential to employees that can save them $600 a year, $50 a month if they volunteer in our wellness programs. The health screening and health risk assessments are two of the three prongs to earn 3,000 points to get that waiver. The screening, we had almost 1,200 employees, possible appointments set up. 1,111 actually did sign up. and we screened 1,159 of those. And so that's very encouraging when you look at those results compared to the last time we ran the screening. And of course, we took a break during the pandemic, didn't do it then. But even if you go back to 2019 numbers, very encouraging in terms of the turnout. We still have a long way to go. Those are two of the three components, as I mentioned. The 3,000 points are also monitored. At this point in the year, 1,612 employees are eligible for this differential. And we have 57.5% who have met it. So there's a little more than 40% remaining. The trend over the last few years, 98%, actually 98.19, 99.18 the previous year, 96.9, 97, 97. So the trend is very near 100%, and a lot of that has to do with the work that Rebecca Fisher does. I mean, she literally calls every employee and makes sure that the percentage, if it falls below 100%, it's because the employee does not wish to participate in the wellness program, not because anyone is missed in that. So a special thank you and shout out to her for all her work in that regard. There's other information in the report. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have, but that's the HR summary for tonight.
Questions of Dr. Vogelaar?
So I'll blame Steve since he opened the Pandora's box. So North Kansas City, Park Hill, recent whatever actions, they're at 15, is that right?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's for all positions, but certainly for key ones and ones that we are lower, in some cases lower than $12 an hour. The state minimum wage goes up to $12 an hour in January, but that's for private sector employers. It doesn't apply to us,
right.
But it does apply to us in that the pocket of individuals that we'd be competing for have those opportunities.
Right.
I know Amazon's coming online too, and they advertise a $15 a rate, starting rate. So 15 is really kind of what we're looking at as a target. It's just finding out the best plan to roll that out to make it financially feasible.
And hey, if you got this answer, great. If not, don't worry about it. But I know we offer, at least one of our health plans is fully funded, right?
Yeah, we have a couple that are fully funded, yeah.
Park Hill, North Kansas City, do we know if they have one of those as well, or is it all you got to pay out of pocket?
They do, but like
Okay.
Park, I don't want to call out districts, I guess.
Sure. Other districts around us.
Yes.
Sorry.
Other districts that have fully paid for plans oftentimes only offer the high deductible health care plan as the fully paid.
Got
We
it.
offer a high deductible plan fully paid where we will invest in a health savings account for them. That's the difference between that and the EPO, which is like a PPO plan that is also fully paid. So our employees have two of those options. If they want more of that kind of EPO design or PPO design, they've got that option that can be fully paid for along with some buy-up options. And then the most economical is the high deductible health care plan. But other districts really funnel and direct their employees to those high deductible plans if they want a free one. And some don't even offer an alternative. So
Gotcha. Okay,
yeah.
that's good.
Yep.
Other questions, Dr. Vogelaar?
Thank you.
Thank you. The last administration report then would be a few items to add to my report to you this evening. As Dr. Moore mentioned earlier, congratulations to the class of 22. Great commencement exercises held on Sunday for both Liberty High School and Liberty North, and a tremendous thanks to Dr. Adams and Dr. Kurth and their teams for putting that together. If you'll recall, we've had to adjust over the last couple of years. So it was nice to be back indoors, especially since it was raining on Sunday. So thank you all for participating in that event. Additionally, we've shared with you previously around our transition to MSIP 6. MSIP, again, is the Missouri School Improvement Program, which serves as our accountability and accreditation system. This is the 6th update or the 6th iteration to that system or that structure. And as part of that transition, as we roll into the 22-23 school year, we have the opportunity to participate in a continuous improvement pilot. And so we've sat in on some meetings with DESE this week, and it really encompasses 3 pieces. The first piece is the submission of the district's CSIP, or strategic plan. To kind of call out that acronym, that's the Comprehensive School Improvement Program, or Improvement Plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. That's part 1, just to submit that, allow DESE to review that particular plan. The second piece is a series of about 5 or 6 questions that are posed to the district in response to the standards contained within MSIP. Very similar to what we did during our Cognia accreditation, as far as responding to questions by providing a narrative or even artifacts that then share our story or tell our story. The third piece is the submission or administration of culture and climate surveys, which we already do through Panorama. And so in looking at those three areas, we felt that we were well situated to participate in this pilot. There are some deadlines that are fast approaching here in May and in June. But what that will do is it serves two purposes. The first is to inform DESE about what this might look like as they conduct a similar review of these aspects of continuous improvement among all 500 plus districts in the state of Missouri. And so they're working with their area supervisors and will likely end up training district leaders to be able to have a review team that goes in and assesses the continuous improvement efforts of district. That's part one. The second part is that we heard that by participating in the pilot, you not only get to inform the process, you get a sneak peek at the process, but then that process of participating in the pilot can also serve as that cycle one of going through it once MSIP 6 is fully in place. And so we'll keep you apprised of that as we move forward. But we've talked about it as our team, and it felt logical for us to go ahead and move and participate in that pilot. But we'll certainly keep you updated along the way. We also wanted to make reference to the Cognia accreditation, as Dallas shared earlier, and he shared an image, a social media post that had this picture from this front cover on it. This is a case study that Cognia conducted and did on behalf of Liberty Public Schools. So we're featured in this case study, given our recent participation in our accreditation review. In addition, we're featured in their publication, The Source magazine, which is an online magazine, has an article written about the district that you can access there as well. Last thing that I wanted to share goes to Nick's comment earlier as far as the legislative session. And we're currently in the process of trying to read through bill summaries as it relates to how the session wrapped up, what was officially passed through the Senate and the House, awaiting the governor's signature. I want to draw attention to one bill in particular, which is kind of the kitchen sink bill or an omnibus bill. That's Senate Bill 681 that originally started as a literacy bill and then had about 30 additional amendments added to it. Over the course of this session, we have highlighted Mr. Gates and his students for their work, not only this session, but the last couple of legislative sessions in trying to get some AP wording through the legislative process, and they were successful this year. And in essence, I'm not going to do justice to this, but it provides uniform credit across Missouri institutions for a score of a 3 or above. Did I get that right? Thank you. So we're excited not only for that passing, more importantly, I think, in my opinion, the experience that our students had in participating in that over the last several years. Other provisions within that bill include competency-based learning, career ladder expansion, and bringing that program back. So we're going to be busy over the next several weeks assessing our ability to move forward with that, but then also vetting the remaining pieces of that legislation and other bills to see how that impacts us both fiscally but then also academically as we look at our policies and how to adjust our programming. So with that said, would open it up for any questions that you all have of me.
Curiosity, how long do MSIPs hang around since we're moving from 5 to 6?
I have been in education 25 years, and it's about 5 years each. So,
depending on pandemics, right?
Throw a pandemic in there, or a recession, you know, so several like high issues like that. But our hope is that as we move beyond MSIP 6, whatever lies ahead, perhaps that Success Ready Students Work Group informs that process. We're involved in that as well at the state level. We present in June at the state board meeting in and around some recommendations around that. Hopefully we can move to a completely different system and forget about MSIP per se. More importantly, move away from an end-of-year assessment because there are better ways of tracking student growth from August to May. And it's not a one-size-fits-all, as we all know. So, great question.
Just a comment, Dallas, appreciate your review on Department of Communications. The one comment that I found great within this and truly showed itself, in my opinion, is the department refusing to allow the pandemic to provide with an excuse for continuous improvement. I think you constantly, ever since I've followed the district, are working to make it better, and I appreciate that, and certainly your leadership of that team, so thank you. All right, Section 5, unfinished business. Let's start with the board policy revisions.
So we've divided out the board policy revisions this month into two portions, and we'll continue to do this moving forward as we've transitioned. We just thought this makes sense to do it. So you have those policies that you saw earlier last month for first read presented to you this evening under unfinished business, of which motion language is provided. The two policies are JGA, in and around corporal punishment. Just to clarify, we do not allow for corporal punishment, and that's what our policy speaks to. It does speak to the ability for reasonable physical force to protect students or others in the event that that force is necessary. That's the first part. The second resolution policy is JGGA, and that's seclusion and restraint. And you'll notice that that is a pretty significant overhaul, as we talked about last month. So quite a bit of that language is stripped out of the original policy, and it's included, it's provided with new wording for your consideration this evening. So I would present those two items for your review.
And the reason that one went under drastic changes is because of a House bill, right, that was passed?
And the change to the first is related to the same House bill.
That's correct, yeah.
Any questions, comments?
I move the board adopt policies JGA and JGGA.
I'll second it.
Denise, when you're ready.
AJ,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Kim Marie,
Yes.
Drew,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Angie,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
motion carries.
Into 5.02, the 22-23 compensation plan.
This is another item that we saw. We've actually seen this. This will be the third time this evening because we saw it at our April study session and then again at our April regular meeting and then this evening. But I want to start by expressing gratitude for Team Liberty and ADSAW, the Administrator Salary and Welfare Committee, for their work meeting throughout the year to get us to where we're at this evening. As Dr. Vogelaar and Mr. Anderson shared, we do have some work we feel that needs to be done even after the compensation plan is approved in and around those critical shortage areas as it relates to some support staff positions. But to hit on the highlights reflected in the memo to the board in these recommendations, the first recommendation, again, to fund all salary schedules, vertical and horizontal steps, to the tune of $1,713,146. Number two, implement the fourth year of a 4-year phase-in from a CBIZ recommended salary study for column movements on classified schedules. That equates to $396,200. Our third recommendation is to enhance certificated salary schedules at about 2% and adjust the base to $40,000. That comes at an estimated cost of $1,303,531. The fourth recommendation is to enhance the classified salary schedule by adding 50 cents to every cell. That was mentioned earlier. That comes at a cost of $646,068. The fifth recommendation is to enhance the professional technical salary schedules to match the average increase on the certificated salary schedule at a cost of $125,960. And then lastly, the sixth recommendation is to enhance the administrator salary schedule to match the average increase on the certificated schedules. That comes at a cost of $283,619. So the total costs estimated for these recommendations, $4,468,524. You have additional detail that follows within that document provided to the board, but would share that with you for your consideration this evening. Anything to add, Dr. Vogelaar or Ms. Sullivan?
Thank you.
Okay.
Any questions or comments with regards to the proposal?
I move the board adopt the 2022-23 salary recommendations and compensation plans as presented.
Second.
Denise, when you are ready.
AJ,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Kim Marie,
Yes.
Drew,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Angie,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
motion carries.
Moving into 5.03, the substitute management services.
So we shared with you earlier that we had pushed this out for proposals, and so we have this evening a recommendation being brought forward to you for your consideration. We'll turn it over to Dr. Vogelaar to walk us through these specifics.
Thank you. In the agreement, it's standard language. Kelly Services is the entity that we work with. We contract currently. After the RFP, we decided to stay with them. One of the talking points, obviously, that the committee had in going through this process was around fill rates and substantive changes that are happening within really each of these vendors, but Kelly Services specifically, since they're the successful vendor, about recruiting and how they're going to bring about additional support. They are adding a neighboring school district, contracting with them, which will onboard all of their existing in-house subs, similar to what happened in Liberty several years ago. That will bring a boost of subs, but there will also be some additional demand with the added entity. We looked at what our going rates are and what North Kansas City's fill rate experience is. We're trying to keep our rates in tandem, so if they go up, they do it with us and we go up, and if we go up, we're doing it with them, just so that we're not creating a situation where a pool of 400 or 500 people are having to choose one district over another at the expense of the other district. So I've been in close conversation with Dr. Gaddy in North Kansas City about the rates in the area that are going up, where our rates are, and what would make it competitive. And you'll see in Exhibit A, the final page, I believe it's the final page of the document, where we're proposing those rates. Talked with Cindy. Of course, it's hard to really assess exactly what implications that would have, but much of it would be offset, obviously, by lowering the demand on our current teachers to cover classes that aren't filled, while creating more consistency and continuity in the classroom with some fill rates that are higher. But you'll add some expense with a higher price, and obviously a higher fill rate would also cause an added expense. But the trade-off in the end, we feel, is worth that. North Kansas City is currently going through this process of adopting an addendum to their exhibit as well, so they've not finalized it yet. But this is kind of where both districts are sitting as the wise and most prudent path forward for next year on sub-services. Any questions?
Questions from anyone?
I move the board approve the agreement with Kelly Services Incorporated.
Second. Denise, when you're ready.
AJ?
Yes. Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Kim Marie?
Yes.
Drew?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Angie?
Abstain.
Nick?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Into Section 6, new business, starting with board policy revisions.
So yes, you see it again, 6.01. These policies then are presented to you this evening for first read. And so to hit on these real quickly, EBBC speaks to lactation support. GCBDA is professional staff short-term leaves. GDBDA are in and around support staff leaves. These two policies, we're working on customizing some language. We had some meetings as cabinet a few weeks ago and really had a conversation around benevolence and how we want to ensure that we're taking care of staff. And so particularly in the area of professional staff short-term leaves and support staff leaves, we're exploring some out-of-the-box language, and we'll bring that information to you as we continue to work on this policy. IGAEB is the last one, and that deals with sexual health instruction. And then we have some accompanying procedures that are listed below just for your awareness. So if you have questions or see anything that you want clarified, please let us know in the coming weeks. Otherwise, you'll see these again in the month of June.
All right. Into the next portion, the 22-23 preliminary budget.
We will welcome Ms. Sullivan back, as we've talked about. Going back to January, really, but really hitting it on March, April, and then here in May, focusing each month on a different portion of the budget process. In March, we hit on revenues. In April, we hit on expenditures. And then here we are in May with a preliminary budget and our end goal to get to the month of June and formally approve the budget. Knowing that full well, July 1, what happened, Cindy?
It's out of date.
It's out of date. So we'll turn it over to Cindy for the next few moments.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Tucker. So the information you're going to see tonight, most of it you have already seen before. with a little more explanation added in on a couple of the components, especially on the revenue side. So this, my usual declaration, is based on the most up-to-date information I have as we speak. Tomorrow, again, it will be as they. So what our plan is to run through this tonight as the preliminary budget. Then if we have an abundance of changes to bring to you that materially change this budget document that we become aware of between now and June, we will make those changes. Otherwise, the plan will be to make budget amendments, which is typical. We typically don't get too much new information that materially changes what you're going to see tonight. If we do see material changes, we will let you know what those are before we present that to you in June, so you are aware of those, and then bring that to you in June. So before we begin, the things that we know we are waiting on and probably will not have by June are assessed valuation information from the county. They don't have to give that to us until July and August to prepare for the September levy hearing. Last year we did hear late in June, so we may have something to at least share with you in June. We also don't have federal program or grant allocations from the federal side. That would be title programs, Perkins, and special education funding. We also don't have local grant information, which is the Children's Services Fund and the continuation of the Kaufman Grant. Children's Services Fund, we should hear more in the next couple of weeks, but they don't have their board meeting to approve it until June. But we have every reason to believe that that will come to fruition. Also, unknowns that we can't plan for very well because of the changes due to COVID would be free and reduced lunch applications and the paid number of lunches that we will experience after everyone has experienced free lunches. So there's a lot of unknowns right there around that kind of revenue and what our experiences will be. Always, summer school ADA will work into our state payment, and we won't obviously know that until summer school has occurred. And then just the supply chain issues and inflation costs. We have built some of that in, which we'll talk a little bit about, but those also represent some unknowns that we will experience this year in our budget. So some additional challenges above and beyond normal, but we've tried our best to work those in. So where do I need the, not going, noise.
I like the noise.
Yep, thank you. So policy DB provides the statutory requirements that are required for our budget document. In today's budget document that was posted for you on Board Docs, you will see items 2 through 5 in that document. We do not have the budget message, which is traditionally not provided to you in the preliminary document, and that will be added for your June document just in case there are updates that I can address in there. So we do meet all of those requirements, and you can see them in that document. Tonight we are presenting you with a total revenue of just over $191 million for all funds of our budget. That is about a $7.2 million increase from the FY22 estimated actual. FY22 still represents budget, so there will be some movement in that as the year is wrapped up. Thing to note on this slide is that over half of the district revenue is from local sources.
And that's where the growth's coming from too, right, Ms. Sullivan?
That's where the what? I'm sorry.
The growth?
The growth. Most of the growth, yes, comes in the local revenue. You'll see that increase from 110 million, or from 101 million to 110. The other significant change, which I'll address a little bit later in the presentation, is the decrease in the federal revenue, which is primarily due to the discontinuation of the ESSER funds and the moving of the federal subsidy for nutrition services from the federal bucket to the local bucket, and decreasing because we will not have as many paid lunches as we have free lunches. So that accounts for the major changes and shifts that you see on this slide. Operating revenue budget is increasing from about 157 million to 161 million. That's an increase of 3.9 million. Main sources of operating revenue are local property taxes and state basic formula. Growth in local revenue is due to the projected increase in property tax revenue from AV growth. And then, as we just talked about, there is a shift in nutrition services revenue from the federal bucket back to the local bucket due to the lack of extension of the federal waiver for free breakfast and lunches. And that shift is recognized in the decrease in federal. And you will see out of operating revenue that local represents right at half of our operating. I wanted just to give you just a little bit deeper dive into the local revenue picture, how we get it, since that's such a big piece of our operating budget. Right now, we are estimating about a $1.98 million increase in property tax revenue for 22-23, and that is about 34.5% of our operating budget. And our assumptions on how I've measured this so far are a 2.5% growth in assessed valuation, which drives that revenue. I have a couple of slides later to show you how I got to that number for this piece of the budget. The consumer price index that is used to calculate the levy, which drives the amount of revenue we earn from assessed valuation, was 7%. However, it's capped at 5% for levy calculation. So we're only allowed to recognize a 5% growth in any property that was on the books the prior year. So new construction, we get to recognize all of that growth. That, when I plugged those into the state auditor forms, that generated a levy of $4.3683. That does include 36 cents that goes to capital. Obviously, that will change when the final levy is calculated and set in September at your hearing. The collection rate I budgeted for was 98.86%, and that is the 5-year average. So right now we're running at a 96.89% collection rate, but I think, you know, that was an anomaly hopefully this year, and I didn't feel too badly bumping that up, that 2%. And that revenue is low anyway, because I do believe our assessed valuation is going to increase more than 2.5%. All that remains to be seen, but that's still a fairly conservative estimate on that revenue. 2022 is not a reassessment year, so we won't see as much growth as we will next year during a reassessment year. Final assessed valuation data and levy will be set at the September board meeting at the tax rate hearing. And please stop me if you have questions. After yesterday, we received a county payment yesterday. Like I said, our collection rate is up to 96.89. So we've got 2 more payments. So we'll get over the 97%, maybe get closer to that 98% collection rate than I initially had thought. This slide shows how we've indicated earlier that we are heavy on the residential side of our property values. So this shows for the past 5 years that residential piece is going up at a fairly high rate, and the commercial not as quickly. There is a line, a small tiny line in between residential and commercial that represents agriculture. That's about 0.2%. But our residential values are 66.44% of our total assessed valuation. So we are residential heavy. And the reason you would like more commercial property is because we receive taxes on 32% of the market value of commercial property and only 19% of the market value on residential. So a higher commercial generates more taxes for us. So we would love to see more commercial property being fully taxed and receive those revenues.
And commercial includes retail, industrial, all that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. This slide shows you just the history, the assessed valuation percentage of change. And you'll see when it dips down, that's traditionally an even year, a non-reassessment year. So you can just see last year was somewhat of an anomaly. And I think that probably was a correction for from prior years perhaps. I don't know that for a fact. That is totally my opinion. But we've never seen growth like that before. So we'll see. We have a new assessor, a new collector. So we'll see what changes that brings in the future as far as what happens next year during a reassessment year. 5-year average growth on this graph for non-reassessment years, which we're currently in, is 2.69%. Therefore, we have built in 2.5% to our projection document. That's why I left that projection at 2.5% growth for AV in my projection document, because it's based on historical data. In non-reassessment years for 10 years, the average is 4.22%, so you can definitely see that the growth has slowed down in the last 5 years. So I did not feel I needed to use that 10-year average. I was more comfortable using the 2.5%. Just for your information also, over the life of the chart, it's a 6.53% change in assessed valuation over all years. So it's come down a little bit. The other revenue that I wanted to highlight for you today, that is one of our largest sources of revenue also, is the Basic Formula Classroom Trust Fund. We do not have a change in that budget currently for this year. It is remaining flat. And I wanted to just explain that to you a little bit. We are still experiencing full funding as it is capped, and that's paying out at $6,375 per weighted average daily attendance. The state adequacy target is the amount that performance school districts spend on average in operating expenses to educate students. It's recalculated every 2 years, and it has a 5% cap, so it does not really represent what it costs in the state of Missouri to educate students. But that is how the formula works. The legislature did decide to cap that, so we cannot grow over 5% per year. However, because of pandemic and things like that, is remaining flat, and it cannot decrease, it can only increase. So it is projected to be $6,375 for the near future. So I don't believe we will see that one change. Revised dollar value modifier, we do get a little bump based on purchasing power and pay. Costs a little bit more in the city of Kansas City, city of Liberty to buy things. So we get a little 8-cent bump over 100% there. And the thing that is different this year is we will be using weighted average daily attendance all the way back to FY20. In the foundation formula, we can base our revenue on the preceding 2 years or the estimate of the year you're budgeting for, whichever is higher. In the past, we have always been able to estimate our revenue because we had growth. But we have not seen growth. Our demographer does not project growth for the coming years. So because of the pandemic, DESE determined that FY22, our current year, was again affected by the pandemic attendance-wise because of the variance. So they allowed us to go all the way back to FY20, which was the last year we have really decent attendance on, to use that if it were higher. So we are able to gather revenue on that, which is the higher of all of those years of FY20, 21, and 22, and projected for 23. So that's a good thing for us this year. However, next year we will have to go back to wanting to use the second preceding year, because every year after that it goes down a little bit. And we have that built into our projection document, but this year it was a welcome relief to be able to use FY20 again. So that's a lot of explanation there. So if you ever desire to learn more about that calculation, I'd be happy to share it with you. It's lengthy, and it's a lot of things go into it, but at least I wanted you to be aware of that state statute provision that enabled us to get a little bit of a break this year in calculating state revenue.
So when I hear the term fully funded, it means that the state has funded what they had set out to fund education at.
Correct.
Not what it costs to educate.
That's why it always has air quotes around it.
Well, I don't see that very good.
It's only fun.
Just clarify. Just clarify.
Being a performance district is what, they take out the top percentage and the bottom percentage?
They take the top 25% of schools based on your APR.
Oh, okay, okay.
And calculate operating expenses. And it's not all operating expenses, there are some takeaways and ads and things, so there's a way they calculate that as well.
Okay.
So, and that's done every other year and for 2 years.
My favorite analogy was the cup that is not quite full and then lopping off the cup so that it's full, right? I know the cabinet has heard me say that several times in years past, but those that recall a not so fully funded formula could tell you when it was prorated back and the percentages and how that was adjusted every single year.
Right.
Nowadays, it's a good message piece as far as being able to say that the formula is fully funded. So.
And that just doesn't really mean fully funded, but it's fully funded. Fully funded, Drew.
I wasn't accusing you of
No,
using
no.
words.
No. I have been known to do that as well.
Maybe I'm the only one.
So this next slide does show you our projected enrollment based on our demographer data. So for the foreseeable future, we will be using the second preceding year to project our foundation formula revenue. What we don't have in our foundation formula revenue projection right now is summer school. So summer school, you always have to use your current year to add on to that calculation. So once that is known, we will reproject that and provide a budget amendment. So we do know that our foundation formula revenue will increase. We just don't know by how much because of summer school attendance. So we just left that as it was. So to summarize our operating revenue primary changes, I just listed a few of the highlights here, the things that are increasing and the things that are decreasing. Most of these we mentioned. Property tax revenue, Prop C, which is sales tax revenue, is going up because of the full amount in the bank account of the state of Missouri. I would anticipate that could be a 1 or 2 year thing as well. I don't know that they can sustain the amount that they're paying out for that projected wise, and the only way they pay it out is when it's earned. So I would anticipate that revenue will drop, if not the year after next, then the year after that. So we'll keep an eye on that. ARP is relief revenue that AJ asked about earlier that we haven't received yet. So we could receive it this year. If not, it will be received next year. So since we haven't received it yet this year, we put it in next year's budget. State transportation we talked about earlier will be fully funded. That amount will be fully known when the year is over, our audit is complete, and our efficiency ratings are updated, and the state efficiency rating is updated. So that's one bucket that's divided out during many different ways, and people are back in school and everybody's transporting students, so that's a real unknown as to how much fully funded actually means, since people are providing transportation district-wide for most districts now.
Can I stop? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Efficiency rating?
Yes.
Okay.
So transportation has a report that's provided with the annual Secretary of the Board report, which is what we have to report to DESE annually. And they have an efficiency goal, and you can be so far above 100% and be fully funded. Once you are too far under 100% efficiency or too far over by their calculation, which is very involved as well, so I would love to sit down with you and show it to you rather than try and explain it to you tonight.
Okay.
But you can be penalized if your efficiencies aren't what they think they need to be within a range. So they are based upon your expenses and your miles and students transported. It all goes in to calculate your efficiency rating, and then that's calculated statewide for every school. And then they take the bucket of money that's been appropriated for transportation and divvy it out based on that. So for usually August, September, October payments are based on prior years, and then when they get everybody's ASBR submitted and approved, they'll calculate transportation and then true up that payment to districts. So we may not know till November what our true transportation revenue will be. based upon everybody having to do the same filing.
But it's tied specifically to transportation?
Yes,
Okay.
transportation is only transportation.
Okay, thank you.
So
Yeah.
to stay on that too, I'm assuming we don't get to just buy a whole bunch of new buses. What ultimately does that cover?
No, that will cover the increase in the cost of gas and all of those good things. Hopefully, it will help offset any other expenses that they may occur, repairs and maintenance, the cost of anything that is increasing.
Yep.
So the cost of contracted transportation that we provide has skyrocketed this year.
Sure.
So we've had to already increase their budget a couple of times this year. So it will be a welcome. And they only fund 75%, so it's not fully funded.
They cover.
Air quotes or no air quotes, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And your annual audit in your ASBR or annual Secretary of the Board report process, like ensures with the auditor's oversight that those expenditures are coded appropriately. So there's that provision as well. So.
Mhm. And this stuff, there's just so much that goes into it, and I am happy to walk you through it at any time if you desire to know more about it. It's complicated, more than we can talk about and make it through tonight and get out of here before it starts pouring or whatever, since the weather radio went off. So those are the primary changes to the operating revenue. Debt service and the capital revenue budgets, they are driven by levy and interest and sales of devices. So the debt service is going up just a little bit due to property tax revenue and interest. Capital is increasing because we are selling some of our devices as we refresh old devices, and the 36-cent levy piece goes into capital to pay for that technology. So those are the increases you see in the capital and revenue budgets. So we're going to move on now to the expenditure budget. The expenditure budget is going to increase by about $7.3 million, from $178 million to $185.3 million. Percentages among the funds remain fairly consistent. We had a little bit of flip-flop in dollars in purchase services and materials, but by and large those things are consistent, and that trade-off was due to being able to do things in person rather than virtual using purchase services. The next shows operating budget, and it was most all of that increase in the total budget. It's going from $157.7 million to $165 million. The major things that are changing in that is the budgeting for steps, column movement, final CBIS phase-in, additional staff, and an increase in benefits. That increase in benefits does include a built-in 10% increase for medical insurance premiums. So hopefully we can get that increase to come in at that rate without too much pain at that point. Salary and benefits do comprise almost 80% of our operating expenditure budget. And as I said, purchase services and supplies just increased $120,000 overall, and that was a shift between purchase services and materials and supplies. We did budget a little bit for inflation, not a lot, just somewhere between 3% and 5% in things that we thought we had to account for inflation on. So there may be some adjustments that we have to make later on down the road for more or less of that. So we tried to account for it where we could, but again, it's a little bit of an unknown at this point. And operating expenditure primary changes, as we indicated, salary and benefits are the bulk of that increase. We also added some instructional resources and professional development services and travel, and our non-employee property and casualty insurance is projected to go up a little bit as well. Decreases are grant expenditures, which we talked about earlier. The grant revenue and the grant expenditures both decrease because we don't know what we're going to be allocated. So those will go up for a net zero effect on the budget when we are made aware of what we are receiving for that. Debt service expenditure budget. Debt service is statutorily required to make payments on bonded indebtedness, so these are the required payments to pay down our bonds. and that total expenditure is almost $11 million to pay off principal on existing bonds. Capital expenditure, Mr. Anderson has talked in depth and provided you information about this. The capital budget did decrease by about $500,000. Some of that decrease was due to projects wrapping up and things that were associated with the bond project, because that is included in this budget from last year. So that provides most of the decrease. Things that will change are tech equipment, replacement of firewalls and recabling seems to be a little bit of an uptick, but pretty much just deferred maintenance and other projects for capital. Nothing unusual to see in that budget. And then this is the last requirement of the budget document. It's the general budget summary. It just puts it all together for you. It shows all funds, where we started, what we're projecting to receive, what we're projecting to expend, and where we will end up. So that is everything as we know it to date. Before I take any other questions that you have, I need to thank the business services people who worked diligently to help put this together, and the budget managers in every building and department who provided information and worked with me to make sure that things were as we thought they should be. And it's a group project. It takes a lot of people to put this together. And the people sitting to my right here, cabinet members, are great resources and sounding boards, and very helpful with their departments and people as well, putting all of this together. So I do appreciate all of the work that goes in to the document that was given to you tonight. So that's what we have. Do you have any other questions for me?
Not yet.
And this puts us at a fund balance of 20%, is that right?
Yes.
Just above. Okay,
Yes,
good.
projected.
Yep.
And we know typically at the end of this year, our fund balance, as in the past, has jumped up just a little bit because people do give money back that they did not spend. I think that's not going to happen as much this year, but still I expect this year's fund balance to end a little bit higher, which in turn may lead this one too, if things go as we plan.
Yeah, for sure. And remind me, what's kind of our target number on that?
Well, it depends on who you ask.
Okay, well, I'm asking you, so it's your floor.
18% is a minimum that I like to see in there. And why we want a minimum of 18% is in order to pay salaries and keep lights on in November and December. We need that much of a cushion to pay bills, because we get most of our revenue in the form of property taxes in January. So we are living off of savings from July 1 through December 31 until we get our bulk of our revenue in January. So in order to not have to borrow a tax anticipation note, which means we're borrowing short term in anticipation of revenue we're going to get, 18% right now ensures that we should be able to pay bills. Now, an auditor will tell you 24% is ideal because we have emergencies that arise.
Sure.
So there's a sweet spot somewhere in there.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you for all the work on it. I know it represents a lot, and
Thanks.
you know the PowerPoint doesn't have all the coding and all the different information. So, thanks for making it legible to lay people like me.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, to 6.03, the fine arts curriculum.
The next item is presented to you for first read, and as we shared with you a couple of years ago, trying to get on curriculum adoption schedules or calendars, really focusing in on the summer months. And so, Dr. Westphal, anything to add in and around this particular item?
Just that we had to split it this year because of our lack of ability to meet at the beginning of the year. They were not able to get through the entire set of curriculum for fine arts, so we'll bring that to you next year. We'll finish that off, plus then the next group that's staggering a little bit more than our original plan. But the ones that we have right here, we're excited, and this is based on new state expectations.
And then you'll see this again in June for final consideration.
A
So.
huge shout out to Mr. Money, Mr.
So as you review that, any questions, and Dr. Westfall's way, or
Yep.
we'll get them connected in the right spots? Good. 6.04, agreements, purchases, and bids.
We will turn it over to Mr. Anderson to walk us through these items.
There are 5 items, all for consideration tonight. Walk through them pretty quickly. There's 3 emergency purchases or expedited purchases and 2 more formal agreements. The first is an RFP. We appreciate approval tonight on first read. This is pertaining to the sale of all of the old and soon-to-be replaced MacBook Airs. And so we received 10 proposals. These are pretty complicated and nuanced proposals because there's a lot of different kind of variables that come into play in terms of how they would characterize or qualify each separate device. After a pretty thorough analysis of our team, we decided to go with Total Technology Results for the lump sum payment of $1.565 million. And as is mentioned there, that there is, if you kind of break down the bid tab, there is some discrepancies there, but feel really good about the recommendation based on some of that nuance that comes into that bid scenario. So with that, we'd appreciate consideration of that tonight. The next item is pertaining to Nutrition Services dairy product for the upcoming year. I think you all received a Friday update indicating that this one's unique in that we're not recommending the low bid, which it's totally appropriate to do that. There's other considerations that come into play, but because of that, we like to bring it out. Usually this would be under consent, but because of that, we like to bring it out under regular business. And as is mentioned here, the total bid for Highland, which has been our long-term provider, is $455,000. That's an estimate based on the number of the product count anticipated, and the Anderson Erickson bid is for $470,000, about a $16,000 difference. But again, as is outlined, there have been several issues in product defect and timing and delay. We felt that $16,000 add was worth it to ensure proper delivery. And then the 3 emergency or expedited actions, 2 are related to school project kind of issues. 1, contract with B&B Theaters for some middle school students for a movie incentive, and then also with Thorny Ridge Exotics, which was a petting zoo for Manor Hill that I think they were here last week. And then the last was our more conventional emergency purchase, and that is with Alliance Pump. We had some issues with the sewer lift station up at Liberty North that required some emergency repairs. So those are 5 items. We appreciate consideration and certainly take any questions.
Yeah, on the dairy, is that a guaranteed through the end of, looks like June of '23, that pricing?
Yes.
Okay. So no adjustments if their costs go up at this point? I mean, they could come and ask, I suppose.
Yeah, I'd have to really kind of dive into the contract if there is some language in there about that, but my understanding is that would be the fee that would be baked in.
And the Total Technology, we're just going to get a check and we're done, right? We hand the devices over, check comes in, there's no nickel and dime on anything.
That's
it's just,
correct.
here it is.
Which of certain value to us and our team, for sure.
Yep, no doubt. Okay, any other questions?
I move the board approve the contract with Total Technology Results, the contract with Anderson Erickson Dairy, and the emergency actions as listed.
Second.
Denise, when you're ready.
AJ?
Yes.
Kim Marie?
Yes.
Drew?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, into Section 7, Board of Education, Legislation and Advocacy. Angie?
I have nothing.
All right.
Legislative session is over, and who knows how that's going to pan out.
Upcoming meetings, the next note there, so big study session, board retreat happening June 7th. Going to be a good morning of work as we prepare. Where?
We're working at our same location as last year, which is over at Liberty High School in the new addition.
In the
called
View?
The View. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, don't just lay it out there. It's the same as it was last year, because that's taxing on the brain.
So it'll be a good working session. Regular board meeting June 21st. 7 p.m. Anything from board remarks here as we close out the evening?
Nice job on graduation.
Yeah.
It's great.
So nice to be
Yeah.
inside, particularly since it was a little rainy on Sunday, but, and I really did enjoy it's not that it's how fast they do it, but it seems very well-oiled machine that they are pulling kids from both sides of that stage, and it seemed to work very well yet again this year, so everybody did a really nice job.
I'm really enjoying the return of field trips. It's been fun. It's amazing to see the parent participation. So it's good.
I want to take a moment to reflect about, it's been a great week in terms of graduation, all the accolades and achievements the students have made. But I have to take a moment and think about 10 lives that were lost in Buffalo needlessly. And to know that it's racially perpetrated is even a greater situation to acknowledge that how this must be impacting our children. And it continues to happen, and we don't seem to have the resolve as a leadership to do anything about it. As we reported this morning, if this nation would not do anything about Sandy Hook, what would it deal with? We truly have got to make a decision about, because one of the responsibilities of the government is to protect its citizens. It's truly an unfortunate circumstance we find ourselves in. And when will we do something about it?
AJ, thanks for sharing.
Thank you for listening.
Any additional comments? If not, we can conclude this evening's meeting.
I move the board adjourn.
Second.
Denise, when you're ready.
AJ?
Yes.
Kim Marie?
Yes.
Drew?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Motion carries.